And we are back. The Propcast, Tosan Touche Tanwe, Tosan T, the executive prop at ViralRugby.com with
Grant Cole. This is Texas Rugby. I am the rugby evangelist asking, do you have rugby in your life? And is it making you happy?
I have rugby in my life. I've accepted rugby into my life, and it does make me happy. So I just want to make sure that the folks at home know that I've accepted rugby into my life, and it's giving me all kinds of wonderful things and blessings. If you do so too, you will also reap those blessings.
That is so true.
I've learned from my prop brother, the rugby evangelist Grant Cole. So we have a great show on for you guys today. It's our first show since the Women's Rugby World Cup. I've been a busy bee, as you can probably tell, watching ViralRugby.com. We got the t-shirt shop open, ViralRugby Tees, hashtag at the bottom. First campaign, thick thighs, more tries, because the tight five deserve a little love. I see all these other t-shirts, and I'm like, you're leaving us the folks that do the real work out of it. So I had to throw something for the men and women that push up front.
That's right.
There are more coming. Shout out to the U.S. Tight Five. We have to do a Propcast with them at some point.
Yes.
We got to do it. So huge news. Better late than never. USA Rugby hires Gary Gold.
Yes, he hired Gary Gold, and one of the things that was interesting about this summer was that the hiring of a national team coach wasn't really the top priority, because it was going to happen. They were going to have the right coach eventually, but basically not getting them on as soon as possible was basically a blessing to the budget of USA Rugby, and that's been helpful. And I think that's part of why Gold's not coming on until after the premiership is over.
Because that's 3 quarters, right?
Yeah, I mean you're into, well, I mean, he's going to come in at the end of second quarter, 18. So yeah, but I mean still, USA Rugby doesn't really work on a quarter system. They're not an industry that works like that. But yeah, it's kind of like that. 3 quarters worth of time where we're saving money. Scott Lawrence will probably stay the interim head coach. And I mean, that's not confirmed yet, but we're probably going to see that.
I mean, he's over there now.
Yeah. And if reports are right, then Scott works for Oracle and is just getting time off and is able to work from wherever he's at in the world, because Oracle lets you do that.
Yes.
And so he's in a good place, and USA Rugby's in a good place with him.
I think so. Now, the thing that did worry me about that, because we talked about this before, right?
Yes.
That the clock is ticking on our preparation.
So yeah, it is, but Tosan, I don't think that 2019 is as important for us as we think it is. We've made the Rugby World Cup. Okay, we're going to be there, but in reality, 2019 is really, in my opinion, a development World Cup for 2023.
I'm okay with that if he's going to be here in 2023.
No. But Gary Gold won't be our coach in 2023.
Okay.
Gary Gold won't be our coach in 2020. He'll be our director of rugby in 2020 and developing coaches.
Okay, just as good. Long as he's around.
Yeah, and I mean, if you read when we all read the press release that Calder put out about this, and basically it was stressing, if we read everything, what Haji says, what Dan Payne says, what Gary Gold says, it's all about developing coaches. That's really what this guy does. He's not really a head coach. As a head coach, his success rating is not that great.
No, it's not.
Okay, but as a specialist coach and as a technical coach of scrummaging, he's had a lot of success. As a director of rugby, he has created a lot of coaches. And if you are to dig into it the way Aaron Castro dug into it, the guy's got a coaching tree that rivals Jackie Sherrill's.
Oh, it's excellent. His, on paper, when I saw it, first thing I said is he's qualified. For all the groaning and consternation that kind of this guy. No, I was like, I didn't care about the records. I mean, because we know what it's like to coach at that level in terms of what the result can be. There are all these things that are completely out of a coach's control.
Yes.
But one thing I know names like Tendai Mtawarira. I know those names. These are. He was a part of that with the Springboks.
Yeah, in 2009 to 2011.
Right.
That was a strong scrum.
I mean,
all 4 years.
Remember what they did to the Lions?
Yeah.
Hey.
And that was really all they could do. But I mean, yeah, they pushed them all around.
That's all they needed to do.
Yeah.
It was scrums and lineouts. That was it. Yeah. But to our point though, technically, where's our biggest weakness? Right.
Our biggest weakness in the scrum. We're strong in the lineout.
Yep.
But and it's not that the players are weak.
No.
We've got really strong players in there. We're just not playing a cohesive game. We're not connected at scrum time. And this is a guy who knows how to do that. Yeah, no one's comfortable. And this is a guy who knows how to do that. He's obviously shown that he can do it before. He can do it again. Right.
I think it's going to help us a lot that the overwhelming majority of our Type 5 are scrummaging at high-level competition. That's going to pay dividends once they figure out how a system that they can all pick up on quickly when they get in, and they, it's just like the band gets back together and you've been scrumming. Like, they're guys that I can scrum with. I know what they're going to do. I haven't scrummed with them in 3 or 4 years. It's going to be like we never fell off. But that's just because you have that system that you guys came up in and got reps in.
Yes.
And now, save any law changes between now and then that we have to adjust for. But I don't foresee that being an issue coming up soon.
But at the same time, one of the things that is going to be happening in this time from 2018 to 2020 is you're going to have those first few years of the MLR. Yep. And then by the time 2020 comes around, when he moves into a director of rugby position, the top coach in the MLR will have risen to the top.
Hopefully.
Okay, yeah. It's just going to happen. We're going to know who the top dog is there, and that person will have been keyed in enough to probably be our national team coach.
It would make sense, right? And then him and his staff would have an integral role in the development, in the high performance development pathway. Like, it wouldn't be 100% of it, but it would be a good 60 to 70%. Save some like spectacular club guys, some spectacular collegiate guys, that type of thing that we could snatch up. And they should actually be working their way into the highest level that's available for us to play in the U.S. anyway.
Yeah. And by 2020, you'll have had, in 2018, it's going to be a little slow. There'll only be about 70 guys in a daily training environment, but that's up from the 22 that's in Chula Vista right now.
I'll take that.
And then there'll be about another 140 guys that are just basically in a part-time training environment, but they're going to be training more than 2 or 3 times a week. They're going to be in 4 trainings a week at least. Mm-hmm. And if you look at how, like what the strikers are doing right now, they've got early morning fitness and then late night rugby 4 times a week. Good. So these guys are in the gym doing the same thing together 4 times a week, and then they're out on the field working with each other, getting to know each other 4 times a week.
So they're on the varsity college schedule basically.
Yeah.
Weights and run.
Yeah, some of them got their jobs during the day. Some of them don't. Some of them, that's all they do. There's 10 of them that are basically their only job is to play rugby all day long, and so they hit the weight room, and then when they're done, they're together during the day, and they're doing their rugby work, watching film, talking to each other, working out what their systems are gonna be, and then then moving into the nighttime, they become at the night practice, they become the leaders. So you've got groups like that, and that's the whole MLR will end up being like that. Mm-hmm. And then by 2020, there'll be about, I'm going to say 2020 is going to see 16 teams in MLR.
Okay. All in the U.S., or are we talking U.S., Canada, Mexico?
No, U.S., Canada, and not sure about Mexico yet, but that wouldn't surprise me. Mm-hmm. So, but you'll see that, and then by 2020, you're going to have 20 players in a DTE full time on each team. Mm-hmm. And at 16, that's 320 players that are vying for a national spot. Now, granted, about, I don't know, 40 of those will be national team players from other countries. Mm-hmm. So they won't be eligible for USA Rugby position, but the rest of them will, and that will have made them that much better. And we saw just how much better these players played when they played in pro. Mm-hmm. And if they get into a situation where they're treated a little bit better and they can trust it a little bit more, then and the coaches are developing and Gold's developing, I think we're going to see that a little bit more. We're going to see a lot more trusting, a lot more cohesion, and then when those guys get into Eagles camp, they're going to be a lot more together than we've ever seen them. Because I'd say it's 2021, and we're probably not pulling a whole lot of players from those overseas teams anymore.
Right. I agree. I think that it brings a C word into comes to mind for me, that confidence.
Confidence, connection, cohesion.
Yep. And those things, once people are confident, the cohesion comes faster. And I think that having something they can believe in systematically and administratively is going to help a lot. I liked the idea of leveraging full and part-time sort of pools. It's not unlike what we see with the elite and the developmental pools with like England and South Africa and things like that. Eventually, I guess that would evolve to where, you know, you're having a certain number of elite tests and a certain number of developmental tests per year. And I'd hope that eventually the women would fill into the same structure, where neither of our teams are seeing anything less than a solid 8 tests a year. Whether it's like, you know, 2 of the sort of competition styles like the APC, or what the women used to play in with the Super Series. I think that's important for growing the game. And for the MLR, I would love to see this extended to Mexico and the Caribbean.
And it may, but that's going to be a tough ask because of the kind of money that's necessary to buy into this. More to the point, we'll see some of those tier 3 players coming in and being on the teams that are on the MLR. I think that's more of a reality than, I mean, just look at New Orleans right now. How many Canadian players are already on that team?
Right. I think they've signed 4.
It's Seattle Seawolves will be the same way. I mean, you're gonna see a couple of teams that have a lot of players from certain areas because that's where their coaches know people. Right. You know, look at the Strikers. The Strikers have a lot from Ulster already. Mm-hmm. You know, so Macklin, Hewitt, and Windsor, all from that same system. Murray is from the Irish system, so they're all from that area because that's where Fitzpatrick and Marty Powers were all from. They're just, you know, they're a bunch of Irish guys, a bunch of Irish kids. So. Mm-hmm.
I think that's a fair thing. That's why it's so important to have a good pedigree of coach on the ground. Not just to have done the work, but they also have the Rolodex. And I think that when we look at, like, let's say, okay, Trinidad and Tobago, Guyana, that type of thing, it'll take maybe somebody that reaches out, or maybe through RAN or something like that, where it gets 4 or 5 of their best players for each involved in this in some way. Like, we know the Mexican side is basically a bunch of Argentines, so we know that they have that sort of tie there. So eventually we're going to see some of that bleed over. It would be interesting, let's say, if we ended up with an MLR team in like Miami, what that would look like. I don't know now this is me just crystal balling. I don't know what what those 16 teams will actually be. But let's say that, you know, you're talking Miami, you're talking Atlanta, you're talking DC, like the DC area, where you're going to see these teams are going to take their own sort of identities of who plays where. Kind of back to our old rugby roots, where we're talking like, you know, the London Irish, the London Welsh, the London Nigerians. Yes, that's a thing. You know, where we figure out where these sort of national team players, that some are basically tier 2, but they're getting their development and they're playing here against some, you know, mid-level T1 talent as the whole thing grows together. Because it's a paycheck,
And the other thing about 2020 is we'll probably have a different administration in process then, and so our immigration problems won't be so botched up, and so it'll be easier to bring in some of those foreign players that are not going to be so easy to bring in over the next 3 years.
Right. So with that, it's funny. So my mother was an immigration attorney, and so is like my sister-in-law. And we were talking about that because one of the biggest difficulties is not even that everything has gotten stringent, as much as there's just a lot of guidance that has gone undiscussed.
Undiscussed.
So, yep. Like literally, it's okay. We were talking about this, then Cliff. And they don't.
We're not talking about that anymore.
Right. We're not talking about. They haven't looked at it, and they may very well continue it because some of these are really innocuous things. It has nothing to do with where they're coming or anything. It's literally okay. We were trying to revamp this for efficiency purposes, and we stopped talking about it. and you know that's why continuity is so important in an administration. So that was my original point about. With Gold coming in, I'm really concerned about there being a handoff. That we're actually handing off a system that we have been developing in for, even if we're targeting 2023, right? Yeah. I want to make sure that is a continuous build-up where we have as little stop-start as possible. Because we've literally been stop-start since 2007.
Yes, but I bet in 2020 we're going to see a change with whatever coach we bring in then, and I don't know that coach has even been thought about yet. I doubt it. But whoever we do bring in will be brought in with the goal and one goal only, and that's quarterfinals in 2023.
Good. We need that money. That's a check.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And in quarterfinals means more Tier 1 matches. We're not playing Germany. We're not playing Georgia. Well, we're playing Georgia. We need to play Georgia. They're a tough team.
Yeah, we do.
We need to play them. But, I mean, we're not playing Argentina's A side anymore.
Right.
We're playing their first side, you know, and that's where it's going to be important is you know, that time where the ARC becomes USA Selects and Argentina A and then everybody else.
Right.
And then we have got to find another competition to strut our stuff in,
or create one.
Yeah, or create one, which is going to be a tough ask, but yeah, it can be done.
I think so. If we show, it's one of those things that if the powers that be see serious progress and commitment to an organized administration that they can trust, money shows up.
And it does. But you know, I think that two things have to happen, and we have to have a professional league on the ground, running and sturdy.
Yes,
it's got to happen.
Attended and like broadcast the whole shebang. It can't be happening in the dark. People can't not know where schedules are. No, none of that.
Yeah.
You know.
And the other thing that's got to happen, and it's I mean, it is we've got to create more technical coaches.
Yeah.
We got to have kicking specialists. We've got to have halfbacks, hinge specialists. We've got to have midfield
passing and
specialists.
Catching.
Yeah, passing and catching, scrummaging, tackling, attack, defense. We've got to have a lot of specialists, and we don't have that right now. We've got to get that, and it's got to be more prolific than anything we're even thinking about right now.
Right. Think about coaches in the NFL. Or not even NFL. Let's not even go beyond. That's ridiculous, right? That's a ridiculous.
It doesn't really matter what sport. I mean, you can a batting coach, a pitching coach, a free throw coach, a 3-pointer coach. Yep. You're in the lane defense coach. You know, everything's got a specialty, and that's what our athletes are used to. Mm-hmm. And when they come to rugby, they've got this coach that's just scattered
and overwhelmed.
And overwhelmed. And sometimes he gets one thing good and other things he doesn't touch on near as well. And you know, it's that way across the board in the USA. Mm-hmm. And we need teams of coaches who are covering as many of the roles and positions that, you know, if you look at the Rugby Revealed, if you look at what Gavin Hickey wrote in Rugby Revealed, how he goes in deep to each position, and then he goes in deep to the attack and deep to the defensive. He really digs into there and as to what it is. You know, in sevens, where one of the things we're moving to is we've got a lot of coaches in sevens who understand how to coach the roles. There's 5 basic roles in sevens: grinder, distributor, creator, aerialist, and flyer.
Finisher,
right?
Yep.
Yeah, a finisher, flyer, however you can call it.
Yeah, it's terminology, whatever.
Yeah, but it's 5 roles, right? And you got a lot of coaches out there that are for sevens are really good at coaching a team to react within those roles, and how everybody's got their primary and their secondary role on a team. But we don't have that in 15s the same way. So that's something we've got to build on, that strength. How did we get these guys to that technicality of that role? Yeah, it's a little bit simpler with less people on the field, but how do you take, what did we do there that was right, and how do we spread it out to the 15s?
It's funny because, and this is when probably at my most busy as a coach, I had about 55 athletes at one point, and me and a backs coach that was part-time.
Oof.
And I mean, you do what you have to do. These are, great athletes, brilliant young women, and getting them to understand rugby outside of position versus role, right? So, and how in 15s it's very situational. So, in this situation, who are your strikers and creators versus out wide? Who are your strikers and your creators, your distributors? And at what time are you what role and why?
Yeah. And why?
But unfortunately, what ends up happening, just like with most coaches, we don't have enough time with players for them to delve into it. No. They have to go home and do the homework to actually get that, right? But I was creating very rudimentary materials for them to look at to do that. But, I'm working full time. I was playing full time. I was playing as well. I was coaching select sides. I was a selector for that. At some point, like you said, people have to, as coaches and the administrator in the front offices, quote unquote, of what we're developing in rugby, we have to get out of that role of doing everything. So now, just as you're saying it, I'm like, well, what would I dive into in terms of my technical expertise? Because I've done so many things. I've coached backs, I've coached forwards, I've all that. I've coached kicking, I've coached catching. I've done video analysis, I've done all of those things. But if I were to choose, I have no idea, because I've had to do it all forever.
I do. I'd choose evasive running, attack, basic attack, and then I'd also really focus on kicking, which is something I had to learn in order to teach. Yep. And it's something I'm still fairly proficient at. I was the other night I was shagging balls for the kickers that showed up before practice, and I was just drop kicking them back to them. They were amazed that I was hitting 9 out of 10 through the post and I just was drop kicking them from wherever I caught it at. And
head down.
Here's the old fat man running around catching the ball, then just drop kicking it and putting it through the post. Who the hell is he and what's he doing?
It's like, man, like you have to say after the try, scored here, I'll take the kick. It's fine. Thump.
yeah.
But we try to tell people props can do it all.
Yeah, and the only reason I ever learned how to kick was so I could teach it. I mean, it's really what I did.
Well, and it's funny how we get in those positions, because it's a vulnerable spot for us as coaches, right? Yes. Where we have that thing that we purposely don't focus on because we didn't do it very well as players. But when we committed to figuring out what it was, and we found the technique that worked for us, we actually were at a place where we could take somebody from not knowing anything about it to proficiency.
Yeah, same thing with evasive running for me. I was a smash mouth runner when I was playing the game. But when I started coaching, I started looking and going, why are we playing smash mouth rugby? Why can't we play?
It looks exhausting, right?
Yeah, it looks exhausting, man. What the hell was I thinking, right? And when I start looking at it, and then I really didn't get it till I was one day watching Barry Sanders, and Kobe Bryant as well. They never attack the man. They attack the space and they just slip through it. And just watching them as fluid as they were, I was just, why am I not doing this? Why did I not do that when I played rugby? I knew how to do that. I used to run through the halls in high school, just slipping through the gaps, skipping by everybody. Why didn't I do that in rugby? I don't know. I don't know why I didn't do it. And I wasn't a football player in high school, so I didn't have those bad habits.
Okay.
So I don't know why I did it. It was just I did it, and then when I got to coaching, I was like, no, this isn't what I need to do. I need to start learning how to attack the space. And once I started looking into it, learning how to attack the space, that's something I became good at coaching. Mm-hmm. And it's something I work on coaching now. We talk about it all the time at our touch practices with the local high school team. Is talk about hitting the space, and then using your speed to slowing down your speed until you're right in the gap, and then exploding through it. This is stuff that had I known when I was playing, I would have probably been a much better player. Probably would have ended up being a fly half the time.
Well, eventually, right? It's like, hey, you get what the role and the situation requires, and I think especially as young men coming up, there's a point in every sport where we learn to stop playing with our ego. Mm-hmm. And for me, I was a fullback in high school, so trucking people was fullback and linebacker. That's what I did. Then I met, and this was and this is shout out to Don Farrell. This was he was my Marfu coach. Him and Terry Ryland, and Doc and Doc over at Kutztown.
Doc. Okay.
And it put me into the idea of just that step to a shoulder. I'm still putting you on the ground, but you're finding the soft shoulder and you're hitting it with power. Right, and developing it to the point where I could go from shoulder to shoulder. All hands were always free. I didn't always have to put the person on the ground or have to fight my way out to present the ball. It's not that they wouldn't get put to the ground, or it's not that I wouldn't retain the ball, but those little things make your ball quicker, and it makes it easier on winning the breakdown. Those little tiny things like that. Yeah. And it's like once you get out of the fact that he trucked them, man, it looked good on film, but now you're under pressure to keep that moving.
Yeah, and like Sam Wuching. Sam Wuching's a perfect example of this. Mm-hmm. I cried watching him play at Club Sevens, right? Mm-hmm. This kid's got every single tool in the box that you need to be a phenomenal player. Mm-hmm. Okay? He gets the ball on the outside. He's definitely got the speed.
Yes,
he's got the power. He's got the size. He can if he just uses it just right, he's got a score. But I watched him give up 6 or 7 tries because instead of putting that ball in the outside hand and attacking the shoulder of the defender, the last defender out there, and he's got 15 meters out to the side. You're salivating, right? Yeah. He tucks the ball in inside hand, drops his outside shoulder, and takes the guy on. Yeah, he trucks him, but it slows him down that 1 second so that the cover defense can come over and get him.
Exactly, because that's the thing. At that level, he can win that one-on-one, and it's okay. At the level just above that or the top of that level, it slows him down, and he's tackled, and he's isolated.
And I'm telling you, him using that technique versus a pure rugby technique, where he's tucking that ball in that outside shoulder, getting it away from the defender, going right at the defender, step into his soft shoulder, fending off right at the last second. Mm-hmm. And knocking that shoulder off, getting the center of gravity off of him. If he'd just done that, there'd been 6 more tries on wax board on the days, and I think they'd been in the final. Mm. I really do. I really think that they would have been in the final had he run just a little bit differently. Well, and I think that a lot of players out there that are good play in that manner. Spike plays in that manner sometimes. Yeah. Now, other times he's listened to what Paul's told him. And he tucks that ball on the outside, and he hits that guy just right. But then other times, man, that defensive end mentality takes him on.
I bet you Spike was a great DN, too.
Oh, he was. He was huge, too.
Man. Spike, holler at me. We got to have you out here. You're one of maybe 2 wings we'll ever let come on the Propcast.
Yeah, ever on the Propcast. Yeah, because he ain't really a wing. He's a wing, but he ain't really a wing.
Right.
So, guys like that. If you had a Sam Muchin and a Spike Davis playing rugby the way Jordan North does, okay, and so playing the way JP, what's his name?
Peterson
plays, with JP Peterson. JP Peterson never takes on anybody.
And he's a big guy. He's 6'2".
He's a big guy. Yeah. And he never takes them straight on, man. And if those guys are playing that way, they're going to get so many more meters in the game. And you're going to have to start adjusting your defenses to spread a little bit more in order to contain them. And just like they had to do with Carlin. And then what happens when you start spreading your defense a little more? You open it up somewhere else for a guy like Taufete to snipe the post and just walk through on you, or whatever, whatever might happen. So I think evasive running is where I can actually make a difference in the game as a coach. But then I also think the other place I can make a difference is as a referee coach. So.
Oh, not bad at all.
Yeah, we're going to see. I've got one that wants to be a referee here in the house, and he's cooking. And we're going to see what he makes of himself, and if I can coach him to be a decent referee, then maybe something that I pursue. It's right now, the next 5 years of rugby should never be about how many Eagles can we produce. No. It should be about how many coaches and referees can I produce. Yeah. And that's going to be very important. We just do not have enough of either right now.
Right.
And on the refereeing side, we're at loggerheads right now. In Texas, at least. I don't know. I understand other areas are the same thing. But in Texas, we're going to have weekends when we have 60 matches. Yeah.
That's incredible.
60 matches on a weekend. And you can't have 20 refs doing 60 matches on a weekend. No. You've really got to have 45 to 50 refs doing those matches. Right. Sure, a couple of them will get 2 matches on a weekend, and I'm talking Thursday to Sunday. But we're going to have weekends here in Texas. We had one last year. We had 68 matches on one weekend.
Wow.
Yeah. This past weekend, just college, and with a smattering of club, and we had 32 matches, including 7s and 15s. Gosh, that's still